Well, good morning, everybody. You're listening to the Red Queen live from the Green Shield, or the Canadian Shield, if you like. It's funny, I was thinking, I'm going to tell you the truth. I had a dream last night that shook me in a way I haven't been shaken, and God, I needed to be shook. I have to thank everybody who simulcast me today. Good morning, everybody on Revolution Radio, Studio A. Thank you, everyone who's listening to LilaNews.info, Wolf Spirit Radio. Good morning, brothers and sisters, and all of the Awake Radio chats. So, thank you very much for sending me emails. And the people who did get a chance to listen to my show yesterday, I realized it was last minute. And yes, I did put that one up on Dropbox. I will be continuing this. But here's the request. Someone wanted me to go into the remote neural monitoring, which we've talked about, with the chips and how they can read our emails and how they can turn on our television and watch us and all of these things. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. You know these things. So someone would like me to talk about that, and I will. Someone else asked me to go into the stories again and talk about gold and mercury. I am going to attempt to do all of these things. It may take me 2 shows-ish. You know how I run on. So let me start with this little fact. There's a man called Robert C. Gunn, Ph.D., from Arbor, Michigan. He is an NSA clinical psychologist involved in human and constitutional rights violations of mind control. He has committed unthinkable atrocities worldwide. Gunn is involved in covert psychological warfare against innocent people, Americans, Canadians, and other global citizens. He is among the developers of psychotronic attacks, which is highly advanced, surreal kind of form of mind control that is intended to induce suicides amongst its thousands of targets. Mind control technology is known as remote neural monitoring. Technology employs satellite-delivered ALF, interestingly enough, extra low frequencies to communicate voice to skull transmissions. This produces schizophrenic symptoms. It also lowers our immune system, which is also done with our lack of passion. ALF radio signals used to communicate with naval submarines deep below the ocean surfaces. These frequencies can pinpoint a target anywhere on Earth, can penetrate water, rock, concrete, and other dense matter. So consider this. The brain is composed of neurons, wires, electrical frequencies and signals, and is powered by low electrical currents. Much like insects communicate with non-contact antenna, humans communicate with radio transceivers. We do. Just like each of us has a very unique genetic code, our DNA, or RNA, if you will. Each has its own specific, distinct radio frequencies. Find the frequencies, and a terror technician can communicate directly to your brain. Gunn was part of the development team that created a protocol of torturing victims. And for decades, Gunn worked as a clinical psychologist at the Ann Arbor Veterans Affairs Hospital. There, Gunn allegedly deprogrammed World War II, Korean War, and Vietnam War prisoners of war specifically. Gunn learned the secrets of mind control torture techniques by deprogramming these specific POWs. Then in the 80s, Gunn was recruited to work on the Strategic Defense Initiative, commonly known as Star Wars program, which is very interesting when you think of Star Wars and the ancient stories I've told you, and the divine child, and we could just call it the oxygen wars. I'm telling you, if we blasted oxygen, just oxygen, raised the oxygen levels inside where these people are meeting, like our senators, like our presidents, like our prime ministers, we would see a change immediately, because some cannot take oxygen. Now, he already had been involved in land-based mind control experiments involving mobile microwave triangulation transmissions. Gunn and the staff of technicians would isolate a victim, beam radio signals into the victims' homes. Now, unbelievably, these attacks are delivered via satellite. In addition to mind-controlled torture, Gunn and others developed a method to produce remote-delivered body shocks all over the body. The third component of this torture involves holographic projections, audible acoustic projections, and finally, the fourth component of this electronic harassment involves what is known as gang stalking. It involves actual incidents of community operatives stalking and spying on neighbors. Sometimes the gang stalkers are paid operatives that are equipped with electronic eavesdropping devices, infrared detectors, X-ray viewers, direct energy weapons that are fire off high-energy microwave pulses. Gunn was involved in covert unit of the NSA. A unit operates like the Nazi Gestapo agents without regard for human or constitutional rights. The first reports of these attacks surfaced throughout Michigan and the Canadian border communities, specifically over the Green Shield, this ancient part of the earth, which may have been the final state of Pangea, where the earth unfolded like a fetus and spread out much like dumplings on top of gravy in our continent. Michigan is the only state that I know of to enact legislation outlawing specifically this type of electronic harassment, which lends credibility to the fact that these covert operations have and do exist. The ADA, Michigan-based Amway Foundation, is among many of the right-wing organizations to help fund this quasi-governmental, but I would say planetary, domestic torture group. The founders of Amway are the largest contributors to the Bush family's so-called New World Order, which is a high-tech offspring of the Michigan militia. Amway, notorious for gang-stalking people who seek to escape their pyramid scheme subculture. pyramid, prison. The targets of these attacks are often estranged domestic partners and Jews and blacks and natives and women and disabled people and whistleblowers, people seeking criminal and civil justice, and local degenerates who may be addicted to drugs or alcohol. Gunn and his wife Leia, which is interesting, Star Wars reference again, the co-chair of the Washtenaw County Commission, are involved in local homeless shelter projects. Gunn has conducted psychological interviews of numerous homeless people and used information in his subject experiments. Robert Gunn is an undetected, certainly not detained, human rights violator. So Google the following combined terms: remote neural monitoring plus NSA plus lawsuit. Also research, gang stalking, MKUltra, mind control. Now this monitoring is a form of functional neural imaging claimed to have been developed by the NSA that is capable of extracting EEG data from the human brain at a distance with no contacts, no electrodes, no chips required. It is further claimed that the NSA has the capability to decode this data, to extract sub-vocalizations, visual and auditory data. In effect, it allows access to your thoughts without a person's knowledge or permission or intent. It has been alleged that various organizations have been using this remote neural monitoring on the U.S. and other citizens for surveillance and harassment purposes. The NSA redirects here. EEG can mean electroencephalography, a method in the science of recording and interpreting traces of brain electrical activity as recorded from the skull surface, or a device used to record such traces as the Empire Entertainment Group, a Hong Kong entertainment company, the human brain, and in animals. Our brain, this one part, the enkephale, Greek term for skull, is a control center of the central nervous system responsible for behavior. Now the history. This RNM, remote neural monitoring, has its roots in the infamous MKUltra projects of the 50s. Although it focused on drugs for mind control, it also included neurological research into radiation, specifically non-ionizing EMF, electro and bioelectronic research and development. The earliest non-classified references of this kind of technology appeared in a 1976 patent by R.G. Mellick, patent number 3951134, for those who want to look that up. Apparatus and method for remotely monitoring and altering brainwaves. USPTO processing. Wikipedia does not yet have an article with that name. Now, in the early 1980s, it is claimed that the NSA began extensive use of this. Much of what is known about it stems from evidence presented as part of a 1992 court case brought by a former NSA employee, John Sinclair Acquay, against the NSA. It describes an extensive array of advanced technology and resources dedicated to remotely monitoring hundreds of thousands of people in the U.S. and abroad. Capabilities include access to an individual's sub-vocalizations, as well as images from the visual cortex and sounds from the auditory cortex. Peaceful applications? Well, while this technology being used by organizations like the NSA is difficult to validate, recent advances in non-classified areas are already demonstrating what is possible. Sub-vocal recognition using advanced electrodes already achieved by NASA. BCIs for gaming consoles, such as companies like NeuroSky, perform primitive thought reading in that they can be controlled with a helmet on a player's head, where the player can execute a few commands by just thinking them. Ambient has demonstrated a motorized vehicle which is controlled by thought alone. It is a brain-computer interface, that is BCI, sometimes called direct neural interface or brain-machine interface, direct communication pathways between human or animal or brain cell cultures, which we have spoken of, and an external device. Also see NSA warrantless surveillance controversy, NSA electronic surveillance program, subvocal recognition, neuroethics. The NSA's warrantless surveillance controversy concerns surveillance of persons within the United States, specifically incident to collect foreign intelligence by the U.S. National Security Agency as a part of the War on Terror. And I have many references of this. NASA developed a system to computerize silence, subvocal speech. This thought, thinking of words, can guide your wheelchair. New science. If they could read your mind, Hamilton John, Stanford University, and Stanford Magazine. Lawsuit, John Sinclair Acquay versus NSA, Fort Meade, MD, USA. External links here. NASA's AIM Center, the Ambient Corporation, NeuroSky, Freedom from Covert Surveillance and Harassment, Mind Justice. So domestic surveillance and mind control technology. What I'm going to read to you are the first 6 pages of evidence in a lawsuit filed by a citizen against the NSA in 1992, alleging harassment and seeking relief for the same. This lawsuit was filed in a U.S. courthouse, Washington, D.C. Evidence for the lawsuit filed in U.S. courthouse, Washington, D.C. I will just read a little bit from this. He said, my knowledge of national security agents' structure, national security activities, proprietary technologies, covert operations to monitor individual citizens. The NSA's mission, the NSA's domestic intelligence operations. The communication intelligence, COMINT, COMINT, blanket coverage of all electronic communications done in and around the United States and the world to ensure national insecurity. It calls it security. The NSA at Fort Meade, Maryland, has the most advanced computers in the world since the early 60s. NSA technology is developed and implemented in part of private corporations, academia, general public, schools, institutions, law. Signals intelligence. SIGINT. The Signals Intelligence mission of the NSA has evolved into a program of decoding EMF waves in the environment for wireless tapping into computers and tracking persons with electrical currents in their bodies. So that means anything alive. Signals intelligence is based on the fact that everything in the environment with an electrical current is in a magnetic field around which gives off EMF waves. The NSA, DoD, has developed proprietary advanced digital equipment which can remotely analyze an object, whether transmace, human, or not, or organic, anything that has electrical activity. Domestic intelligence. DOMINT. DOMINT. The NSA records on all U.S. citizens. The NSA gathers information on U.S. citizens who might be of interest to any of the 5,000 NSA agents. This is HU-MINT. HU-MINT. These agents are authorized by executive order to spy on anyone, for anything. The NSA has a permanent national security anti-terrorist surveillance network in place. The surveillance network is completely disguised and hidden from the public. Tracking individuals in the U.S. is easy. It means your kids with the nice new surveillance Barbies that are out can effectively implement with the NSA's electronic surveillance network. This network, again, DOMINT, covers the entire U.S., involves thousands of NSA personnel, tracks millions of people simultaneously. Co-effective implementation of operations is achieved by NSA computer tech designed to minimize operations costs. The NSA personnel serve in a quasi-public position in their communities, run cover businesses, legitimate businesses, which informs the intelligence community of persons they would want to track, like Facebook. NSA personnel in a community usually have cover identities, social workers, lawyers, business owners, radio hosts, not me. Individual citizens originally targeted for surveillance by independently operating NSA personnel as well. NSA personnel can control the lives hundreds of thousands of individuals in the U.S. by using NSA's domestic intelligence network and cover businesses. The operations independently run by them can sometimes go beyond the bounds of law. Long-term control, sabotage of tens of thousands of unwilling citizens by operatives has happened, is happening. The NSA, DOMINT, has the ability to cause the subjects to be diagnosed with mental illnesses and mental health problems. The NSA's domestic electric surveillance network Now, as part of the early 60s, the most advanced computers in the world, NSA, Fort Meade. Research breakthroughs with these computers were kept for the NSA alone. At the present time, the NSA has advanced technology, computers, sometimes now bioenhanced, which we have spoken of, programmable DNA, 15 years at least ahead of anything we've even seen. Even the DNA computers, even the now you can buy your own genome thing. Way more. Probably 50 years. But we'll say 15 just to be light. Coming in light on this one just in case. The NSA obtained blanket coverage of all information in the U.S. by using these advanced computers that use artificial intelligence to screen every communication, regardless of medium, for keywords that can be brought to the attention of the NSA agents and cryptologists. These computers monitor all communication at the transmitting and receiving ends, both. Blanket coverage of the U.S. is a result of the NSA's Signals Intelligence Mission. Again, that's SIGINT. The NSA's electronic surveillance network is based on a circular arrangement of devices that can monitor the entire EMF spectrum. This equipment was developed, implemented, and kept secret in the same manner as all other electronic warfare programs. They attack the animals in the oceans first because they have more capability of using their brains than we do. They use more of it. You hurt them, we are easy peasy, lemon squeezy. NSA, track all PCs, all computers sold in the United States, an integral part of domestic intelligence network, and the majority of these things were made in China. So you know they got you too. The NSA's EMF equipment can tune in RF emissions from your personal computer, especially the video. When you take a picture and they see the shape of your face, they are already programming things into your mind, circuit boards, while filtering out emissions from the monitor and from the power supplies. The EF or the RF emission from PC circuit boards contains digital information on the PC, coded RF waves from the NSA's equipment can resonate PC circuits and change data on your PC. Thus, the NSA can gain wireless access, entry to any computer in the country for surveillance or anti-terrorist electronic warfare. Now, detecting the EMF fields in humans. A subject's bioelectric field can be remotely detected, so subjects can be monitored anywhere they are. With special EMF equipment, NSA cryptologists can remotely read evoked potentials, that is EEGs. These can be decoded into a person's brain state and thought. The subject is perfectly monitored from a distance. The NSA's personnel can dial up any individual at any time in any country on the signals, on the Signals Intelligence EMF scanning network. And the NSA's computer will pinpoint and track that person 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they can pick out and track anyone in the U.S. 100%. Now, it gets deeper. Their use of EMF brain stimulation. They use it for remote neural monitoring called RNM, an electronic brain link, EBL. Hold on. Sorry, guys. What this does. Well, let me go back. Radiation. The result. Anyway, this bioelectric research and development here. Radiation non-ionizing EMF. The result here of this secret technology is categorized by the National Security Archives as radiation intelligence. You can look that up. As defined as information from unintentionally emitted electronic waves in the environment, not including radioactivity, not including nuclear detonation. Signals Intelligence implemented and kept this technology secret in the same manner as all other electronic warfare programs in the United States government. The NSA monitors available information about this technology and withholds scientific research from the public. There is also an international intelligence agreement to keep this technology secret. The NSA has proprietary electronic equipment that analyzes activity, electrical, in humans from a distance. NSA computer-generated brain mapping, which we have talked about in the past, leading up to this, can continually monitor all electrical activity in the brain continuously. The NSA records and decodes individual brain maps of hundreds of thousands, if not billions, of people for various purposes. And the EMF brain stimulation is also secretly used by military for bringing brain to computer linkage, like military fighter aircraft, for example, which is already done. We've talked about in the past how you can use your brain in a little helmet that was first developed here on the Green Shield to fly little robots. Looks like fun. To play little video games. Feels like fun. But for specifically electronic surveillance purposes, the electrical activity in the speech center of the brain, whether you are speaking or not, just thinking it, can be translated into the subject's verbal thoughts. RNM can send encoded signals to the brain's auditory cortex, thus allowing audio communications direct to your brain by passing your ears, which is a filter, and they are meant to be there. They don't look at your ears anymore. They don't need your computer anymore. The NSA operatives can use this to completely disable you by simulating auditory hallucinations characteristic of paranoid schizophrenia, depression, and Alzheimer's. And without any contact with the subject, remote neural monitoring can map out electrical activity from the visual cortex of your brain and show images from the subject's brain on a video monitor. And as the operatives see what the surveillance subject's eyes are seeing. Visual memory can now be seen R&M can send images directly to the visual cortex, bypassing your eyes and optic nerves. And they say operatives can use this surreptitiously to put images in the surveillance subject's brain while they are in sleep, REM sleep specifically, for brain programming purposes. The capabilities now using this R&M. There have been a signals intelligence network in the U.S. since the 40s, kids. The NSA Fort Meade has in place a vast two-way wireless R&M system, which is used to track subjects, non-invasively monitor audio-visual information in their brains. This is all done with no physical contact. R&M is the ultimate method of surveillance, domestic intelligence, speech, 3D sound, subliminal audio can be sent to the audio cortex of a subject's brain by passing your ears, images sent to the visual cortex by passing your eyes. R&M can alter a subject's perceptions, your mood, your physical motor control, speech, cortex, auditory cortex link, has become the ultimate communication system for the intelligence community. R&M allows for a complete audio-visual brain-to-computer link. NSA signals intelligence electronic brain link technology. They can remotely detect, identify, and monitor a person's bioelectric field. It has the ability to remotely, non-invasively monitor information in the human brain by digitally decoding the evoked potentials in the 30 to 50 hertz, 5 milliwatt electromagnetic emission from your brain. Neural activity in the brain creates a shifting electrical pattern that has a shifting magnetic flux. This magnetic flux puts out a constant 30 to 50 hertz, 5 milliwatt electromagnetic, so EMF wave. Contained in the electromagnetic emission from the brain patterns are called evoked potentials. Every thought, reaction, motor command, auditory event, visual image in the brain has a corresponding evoked potential or a net of evoked potentials. The EMF emission from the brain can be decoded into current thoughts and images and sounds in that specific subject brains, bypassing all the electrical interference all around them, and target you specifically, ignoring all others. SIGINT uses EMF transmitted brain simulators as a communication system to transmit information as well as nervous system messages to intelligence agents, and also transmit to the brains of covert operation subjects for non-perceptible interference. This stimulation works by sending completely coded and pulsed electromagnetic signals to trigger evoked potentials, events, if you will, in the brain, thereby forming a sound and a visual image in the person's neural circuits, their brain, hence their body. EMF brain stimulation can also change a person's brain state and affect a motor control. Two-way electric brain link is done by remotely monitoring neural, audiovisual information while transmitting sound to the auditory cortex, transmitting faint images to the visual cortex. These images appear as a floating 2D screen in your brain. Two-way electric brain link has become the ultimate communication system for all CIA, NSA, whatever three-letter demon entity you want to use. One has it, they all have it. Remote neural monitoring. Monitoring bioelectric information in the human has become the next big thing. Requires decoding the resonance frequency of each specific brain area. The frequency is modulated in order to impose information in a specific brain area. Frequency, to which various brain areas respond. The NSA signals intelligence modulates signals in this band frequency, 30 to 50 hertz. Brain area, motor cortex, audio cortex, visual cortex, somatosensory cortex, thought centers, bioresonant frequencies. They have 10 hertz, 15 hertz, 25 hertz, 9 hertz, 20 hertz, and information induced through modulation. Motor impulse coordination, sound which bypasses the ears, images in the brain bypassing the eyes, phantom touch senses, imposed subconscious thoughts. This modulated information can be put into the brain at various intensities from subliminal to perceptible. Each person's brain, again, has a unique set of bioelectric resonance, entrainment frequencies, if you will. Sending audio information to a person's brain, the frequency of another person's audio cortex would result in that audio information not being perceived. So the plaintiff learned of the RNF by being in a two-way RMF contact with the Kincom group at the NSA Fort Meade. They used RNM 3D sound direct to the brain to harass the plaintiff from 1990 to 1991. As of May 1991, they had two-way RNM communication with the plaintiff and used RMM to attempt to incapacitate the plaintiff and hinder the plaintiff from going to authorities about their activities against the plaintiff in the last 12 years. The Kincom group has about 100 people working 24 hours a day at Fort Meade. They have also brain tap people the plaintiff is in contact with to keep the plaintiff isolated. This is the first time ever a private citizen has been harassed with the RNM and has been able to bring a lawsuit against the NSA personnel misusing this intelligence operation method. The system for inexpensive implementation in any location, in any building, in any country. A system for inexpensive implementation without using spies or actually needing one, because they could send the signal to make you a spy. And I have lots of links about that. Now, the Cassandra Project. I doubt. I think therefore I am. But I am what I think. But could it be a better world? Government policing, NSA, remote neural monitoring takes us to a whole new level. Human rights, Big Brother, the wall. The next little piece I'm going to read to you was given as evidence provided in a civil suit against the federal government. Again, John Sinclair, former NSA employee, whistleblower, who exposed the use of neural monitoring to spy on individuals. The signals intelligence mission that the NSA has invoked into a program of decoding EMF waves in an environment for wirelessly tapping into computer and tracking people with electronic currents in their bodies. So if you're breathing in and out right now, it's most likely I'm talking to you. Blanket coverage of all communications in the U.S. and in the world. From Fort Meade, Maryland. Individual citizens occasionally tracked for surveillance. The stuff that we have seen in the last little while is absolutely incredible. And you can look up NSA signals intelligence use of EMF brain stimulation. And we know exactly what bioelectric resonance frequencies will affect you. For instance, motor cortex, 10 hertz. Motor impulse coordination, they can throw that off. Auditory, 15 hertz. Sounds which bypass your ears that you will just hear for no reason. Visual cortex, 25 hertz. Images in the brain bypassing the eyes. You think you see it. You're not imagining it. You are seeing it. Phantom touch, 9 hertz. You will feel like you're being touched. Thought center, 20. Imposed subconscious thoughts. Not because you're sick, not because you're paranoid, not because you're depressed, because they are sending it to you. Hundreds of people working 24 hours a day. If we found the one, there are many. Remote devices, yes. Spotters and walk-bys. Metropolitan areas, yes. Chemicals and drugs used in residential buildings. Hidden NSA installed. Maintain plumbing lines. And NSA has kits from running lines into residential tap water, air ducts, of subjects for the delivery of drugs such as sleeping gas, brainwashing aging drugs. Outgrowth, again, of CIA pharmacology here. But they don't need that anymore. They can send a signal to the water saying it is this. Brave new world we're in. And hundreds and thousands of people who have stood up and talked about these things. The world is reading us. So when we say by our intent, we can change things. And all the links and everything again are turtleislandnews.info. The first link, remote neural monitoring. You can see it. You can see all of it. Is this new tech? It is not. Mercury, element of the ancients, the promise of power, intriguing, right? Because of its silver hue, its liquid state, room temperature, its being close to gold, elemental, mercury, known by the ancient Greeks, the Romans, the Chinese, the Hindus. Each civilization has had its own legends of mercury, and it is used as everything from medicine to a talisman. Mercury's chemical symbol, Hg, comes from a Greek word, hydra regram, or something like that. It means liquid silver. Mercury. The only difference between mercury and gold is the speed, covalence, bonds, basically. It's also known as quicksilver, reference to its mobility. And we all are carrying it now. If you've had a shot, if you've had a vaccine, if you've been around someone who has it and they are looking at you and maybe you enjoy them, they have sent that signal to you remotely. Alchemy's darker moments, my loves. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Turtle Island News with Tracey Kennedy. Live with the Red Queen, sitting on the green shield. And I say hi to all my warriors out there. So what this means is another scam. Of course, they're using these things against us because we know all the smart technology out there. And even if you don't buy it, and you have to pay not to buy it, which is hilarious, they're getting money for something they can already do. There's no need for super soldiers in the way we've thought of them. Although, of course, they are doing their DNA, genetic modification, which has been a long-term plan, guys. From the use of mercury, from the use of putting buildings on top of our grid system on the planet. They can send a signal to someone else's brain who is suddenly working for the NSA or whatever three-letter agency you want to put in there, in whatever country, and their brain will now be able to work like a super soldier. Click in, click out. So I have blocked my video. I've left Facebook. So if you want to send me a message, guys, go to turtleislandnews.info or join my Skype. And let me tell you, I immediately felt better. Immediately. Less than 24 hours. Emotions being sent to your head. All of these technologies, of which we know and have talked about. We're going back in time for speed and mobility. Characteristics of a Roman god, Mercury, who served as what? A messenger to all the other gods and shared his name with the nearest planet to the sun. The symbol for the planet was used by alchemists to identify Mercury before it was given a name in modern chemical notation. Although Mercury's mystique held the promise of power, many ancients also knew it was toxic. It was in the mining of the element where mercury first became associated with human illness, beginning as tremors, progressing to severe mental derangement. Largest natural source of mercury is cinnabar. Is only known ore. Richest deposits found in Spain and Italy. Reddish mineral containing mercury and sulfur used as a pigment since prehistoric times. Cinnabar, dating back to around 500 BC, identified at a Mayan site in Peru. Prehistoric skulls painted with cinnabar found in Italy. Romans used mercury mines as penal institutions for criminals, slaves, other undesirables at the time. The warders were first to recognize there was a high likelihood that the prisoners would become poisoned and spare the keepers the need for any formal execution. Mercury is primarily a neurological poison causing tremors, extreme mood changes, eventually loss of hearing, restricted vision. Certain forms of mercury poisoning also damage liver and kidneys. The lifespan of a worker in those mines was tragically brief. So from mercury to gold. Ancient art of alchemistry. Mercury, sulfur, and salt were Earth's three principal substances. Hindu word for alchemy. Rasa Sim Di, meaning knowledge of mercury. Still kind of like quicksilver. Believing that mercury was at the core of all metals, alchemists supposed gold, silver, copper, tin, lead, and iron were all mixtures of mercury and other substances. While alchemists in different countries had different beliefs, one of the central themes to European alchemy was a belief that the correct combination of mercury and other ingredients would yield forth gold. A Roman emperor, Diocletian, around 245-313, issued an edict in late 3rd century calling for the destruction of all written works dealing with alchemy. He feared artificial gold, which they were making all over the world, would debase the value of Roman currency, allowed alchemists to amass great fortunes, which they would bribe officials with and gain power. The only difference between the fake gold and the real gold, which Archimedes found, was its buoyancy. That's the only difference between gold and mercury. Atomically, it's fluidity. It goes deep. We'll go into that more. But false promises of longevity and health here. And the line between alchemy and medicine, not always clear. But 2nd century China, the study of mercury centered on the search for the elixir of life to confer longevity, immortality. Prominent chemist Ko Hong lived in the 4th century, believed that man is what he eats, and by so eating gold he could obtain perfection. Where have we heard that before? And yet he reasoned a true believer was likely to be poor, and so it was necessary to substitute for another precious metal. These beliefs, this idea between the gold and the mercury, some that eat and some that do not, the angels and the fallen angels, are ancient here. We are talking about the darker side. You know, on one hand, we're being told by Lawrence Gardner that the entire origin of the planet's major gene pool was rooted in an entirely a gray owl quest for gold, the powder, the ormus, the manas, the spice, the shem mana, the star fire, the passion, sometimes the lust, or the bliss called in the V movies. There is always something that if you control the spice, which is cinnabar, you control the world. Gardner exquisitely explains the origin of dozens of keywords in religious myth directly from their use of gold powder cooking up operations. Ritu became ritual. Flow, menses of the Messiah became flower. Shem mana became shaman. Kayin Cain became king, or Kayan, depending on. And it's not an incident that Kayan and Cain and king are very similar. And Lil, became Jehovah, and on and on and on. Well, I realize that probably many generations of old religious scholars will have to die off before many will take some things that Gardner said seriously. I, for one, am absolutely intrigued and enjoy his scholarship. I agree with a lot that he says, particularly the radical material about Enlil, changing his name to Jehovah in order to make fools of the rabbis, and Akhenaten changing his name to Moses in order to better evolutionary and gold powder. For me, all of the material fits hundreds of other sources that I've been studying for at least 15 years. Even the Sitchin stuff, Collier's stuff, Morning Sky stuff. Again, I hardly recommend everyone read Lawrence Gardner to see the tomfoolery that has passed for religion on this planet. Sumerian tablets make the Bible look childish, disjointed, fairy tale. And thank God. I am very much concerned here that there's a potential collective intelligence in the field that can radiate between empowered genetic material. It's why gene has been encoded in so many of our words. Even the word for cleanliness. Not that word. The other one that looks like gene. After digesting anyway much of this work, it's critical that you don't swallow, literally, all the spin doctoring, PR stuff from the Draco like Gardner. And I don't speak of him as a Draco disrespectively. It's part of the story that Gardner carefully avoids, which makes his work dangerous. I think he gets it right between Ea, which is why we have Earth, and An's two sons, Enki versus Enlil, very divided on how psychokinesis allowed their clones on this planet. I don't think Gardner understands the word Neribu meant experiment in bloodlines, crosses from human to reptilian. The search for gold because these beings could no longer implode. And from Sirius, who sired Enki and Enlil, humanoid cross, reptilian dragon, if you like. His sons brought the war of brothers to Earth. The war of the stars that are told about all the stories on the planet, to Cain and Abel, to the east of Eden. Also, there's certain large expanse to be offset in the capitalization of costs of such large artificial gene splicing. And its stuff. Obviously, if you make clones, Adam and Eve, in order to mine immortal gold powder, you don't train the slaves to eat your profits. And see how Gilgamesh gets angry at the Anunnaki for not sharing their seeming immortality. Bardo, wormhole, Bardo from Asian beliefs, also known as Inku Abula. This can explain some of the angry Yahweh and Lil profit-making things of the gold mining operations, and his later return to the claim, his turf, Draco's shape-shifting out of his Secretary of Navy after Dolce's war, etc., if you like. Why all of these stories are brought up? and even reptoids interfering with the study of federal undergrounds, you can see that a certain critical mass of us were chose to become Borgs, cyborgs. And if all of the artificial intelligence and all of the artificial DNA, all of these things that are true and happening are for a reason. If we are to believe Reiki's Golden One story of origins. And most people will tell you our governments are paralyzed wholesale by some sort of Borg, Draco, Orionist idea. They say they don't want to know. Collier, Branton, Bill Cooper, Phil Schneider, a.k.a. Firefight at Dulce. Schneider built Rand's deep underground military. Michael Ash, most detailed and in-depth underground base at Dulce and Reptoid by Branton. There's another important angle here. The stories of the same Orion group, Enlil types, which Gardner makes heroes as Dracos, dragons. Meg, as in Magdala, came back here to recover something more important than gold. This is the ability to craft DNA that could be ensouled and time travel. This required something akin to the fire of the stars in the genes in Genesis. They came back here because the skill to keep genes moving faster than light in time was lost for a whole galactic sector. The day this planet started cloning and genetically engineering with things like mercury. And see how genetic engineering, by breaking up long-wave brain patterns in DNA, literally prevents the faster-than-light cascades up the central zipper, which is our ensoulment. Soul, invitation, food. So if we have learned anything, it is that gold powder mining fairy tale is literally a smokescreen cover for something really valuable, commodity of this galaxy. Trading houses, I guess. The prize is now and has always been how to get DNA and genes which literally enter into stars, for which the gold atom is merely a little detonating trigger. When in context of the glands, which could take over the steering process through light. I have discussed these things other times, that this skill to get DNA braided so that fields become embedded and implode themselves into anything outside them. And the skill is to get the structure of DNA aligned into a perfect self-containment, emits from your heart. It is a simple sonic ponytail. From coherent, ecstatic heart, it is bliss. This does the braiding of your DNA, which lines up with short waves, codon sequences, of the long waves, long sonic envelopes of the DNA's braid. This allows this silky wave mechanics to add and multiply up and down the ladder, according to wave velocities, eventually, or simply beating through light speed. Faster than light implosion, lighting at the center of the DNA is measurable. Look at William Pensinger. Same for gold filaments. under high amplitudes. Does the exact same thing. Same images we get from our heart when we're in love. And calm and joyous. Of course we can fix this. Of course we can fix our DNA. Science has even come out, said that we can fix our DNA by intent. For physics, of how this properly heart-induced implosion accounts for even gravitational things that we call black holes. The solution to Einstein's theory to model geometry of the in-phi key implosion, he called it, to understand why black holes bend time. So in summary, a gland induced by genetic ability to embed your DNA fields and therefore your field of awareness into any field outside you eventually leads to creating, centering, and gravity force, which bends light, and thus is creation as a wave mechanic. Starfire for real. The purpose of this conversation is to put the clues together with the black powder controversy to get perspective on how best to stir up the brain-heart juices into starfire, which is sustainable, which is self-steering, which is the wave, which is the worm. So the real question is, what is the best way to get the fire of the stars back into your genes where they belong? Now we all remember the rush of added spin, the moment we feel real compassion for some great event. Watching earthquakes on TV. And there's a certain moment where you really feel the anguish of such a huge part of our collective gene pool being hurt. Empathy. And at that moment, I felt a rush of fire tingling in my blood. I, as you, when we feel these things and the hurt and the pain for what someone else is going to, you are absorbing spin. You are eating memory into embedding electrically. Probably some glandular way, you could say, a trigger effect that got me into a DNA speed up by spin embedding, triggered into my heart by what? Feeling. The trick here is to differentiate between the role of DNA speed up from things like gold and other silver bullets versus DNA lighting up by actual self-generated glandular events of electric embedded echo-shifting magnitude. In this difference appears to lie the key to the millennia. Evolution squabble and agony going right across the galaxy, in which our squabble of our little planet is merely one of the skirmishes. To give Gardner a little credit, he notices that dead gland juices, serotonin, melatonin, from pineal pituitary can be bad. He continues sadly to wax absolutely poetic, however, about the gold and the plutonium prepared powders, thus implying that they are the sole necessity. These are the solutions for immortality, that you must look out, that there is nothing within you. But I'm here to tell you that our bodies contain everything that we need. All the while, most blissfully ignore the overuse of these powders is clearly very much a reason for your Anunnaki Draco heroes to come here, rape our gene pool in the first place. They had become somehow juiceless, literally heartless, Draco's heart split in two. They have two. See Branton, Schneider talk about fractionation. Precisely because they ate this stuff. This is a minor detail, which cost those Borgs their souls. And let us look practically at the results of gold powder consumption. Ears ring. Immune systems rebound. Biological immortality seems assured. Who could knock that stuff, right? Heck, we're only dollars away. Doesn't it seem a little unlikely, given our knowledge, biological changes here on this planet? Any life force becomes repeatedly more sustainable as a wave. Some actual self-generation seems to be involved. If all it took to get DNA to speed up, to enter the stars, was enough gold powder in the diet, don't you think this little galactic squabble would have been over long before Ankian and Lil had to change their names to Adoni, later Adonis, and Yahweh in order to enslave their clones? So let's look a little deeper into this plot. Mr. Gardner, you Draco spin doctor loving guy, you. So let us leave this revolutionary history out of the fairy tale squabble here for a moment and focus on simple plumbing, mechanics, which makes ecstasy and therefore lightning, starfire in the DNA, and sustainable gold power possible. The heart's sound wave, feeling, compassion, wonder, generate a phi harmonic series, which snake charms the spine, pumps up to get the high UV out of the sex organs into the pituitary, the pineal gland. This is Kundalini. This is love. This is what happens to our hearts. Now, if we look at the geometry of the pineal gland, around which the residual gold powder is deposited during proper ecstasy, because yes, we make it. First, we have a golden spiral, self-similar structure. Golden spiral gives us a 2D simple spiral, a 3D spiral, which is a helix, a multiple 3D golden spiral, unique ability to maintain perfect balance. It expands. For example, the golden spiral is the shape of the chambered nautilus shell, or the ram's horn. We begin to worm in the true principle, which is embedding, which you can only feel when you feel empathy, heart-linked, these spirals. And I see a map to true electrical geometry, which makes gold powder monotomically stable. It is the same thing that happens biologically, physically, when we feel bliss. Basically, of course, the electron symmetry into a perfect phi based embedding is the same in gold atom as in the pineal gland, where it's phi-rayed by the heart. Even the brain liquid ventricles reshape themselves into this exact same ram's horn to sonically focus the spine juice pump waves into the pineal pituitary as something softening trigger when you melt with someone. I'm not just talking about doing the cooch and bumping up against each other like a bunch of fools. But when plummeting is pressured up from the blue dish enough to make you, well, the term's horny, but it kind of looks like a horn when that moves up That's how it looks. They obviously called it this for a reason. This is the story of our Morway, about needing to use the heart to get there instead of the gold powder. Instead of just taking sexual energy and moving it up, you share it so it becomes entwined. You feel the state of bliss like the V movie. She sends bliss to her people. Why then did they all agree to make gold? Even Thoth agreed with the Egyptians that there were some psychological, spiritual exercises which could avoid fractioning of personality when eating gold powder. And first, why would the personality literally blow apart in the face of too much fiery? Second, how does it work for the psyche to prevent damage of too much chemical explosion? Here's the clue. The chem in alchemical. It's more like kayem or kia. This is the first word for Egypt. Or the chem in Hebrew, if you like. It means literally the blackness from the depths, from the abyss. From the blackness there is light that can only happen with the combining. From the black hole comes inertia through light speed. Only harmonics to grab wave fronts. Going in and going out of light speed, the black hole are perfectly beating in a golden ratio. This literally is the only starway to heaven that ever needed to exist or has ever existed. It is the disciple of geometry. And it does have a psychological requirement, unequivocally required. Emotion and memory and image and inner vision are all simply names for field effects, which become holographically phased, disciplined enough to become sustainable. This is free energy. This is it. When you feel passion for your life or for a person or for anything, you become stronger. Your immune system bucks up. Your passion goes, so does your health. I know mine did. It's interesting, when I really looked at it today, and I looked at it because of a dream I had last night where and you guys know that my internet name, my gaming name is the Red Queen. And in the dream, I was standing on a red shield, a green shield. And I found out that this little piece of dirt here is the green shield, Ontario shield, if you like, the Canadian shield, the piece of it. And it looks like a little Fibonacci spiraled fetus. This is why I looked into it and found out, yes, I am. So a high density feeling of light coming in when you feel very connected to someone or something outside you, both produces and produced by this all chemistry phi implosion, which is the cash stuff I'm studying, although he doesn't call it that. As we have proved with heart biofeedback spectrum analysis showing not octave, but phi spacing between harmonics, the moment of wonder and openness and compassion. When they talk about The children that were used in an experiment to run the star share, even when we look at Stargate and stuff, the ones that could use the star chair, they talk about compassion here. That it was only the most empathetic. It was the ones that they couldn't train the love out of them. They couldn't beat it out of them. They couldn't kill it out of them. But they tried absolutely everything to break them. But the ones that they couldn't break, that still kept this, were the special ones. The other ones that you just used to kill and make crazy and explode. And fed them gold, because it does something different. If you do not feel passion to engage in this dynamic of fields, converging implosively is literally the solution to what's going on here. Sun, heart, making is both. From your solar plexus, which is called your solar plexus because it is the energy of the sun up to your heart. That creates the real physics of phi harmonics, alphabetical elements of the heart, symmetry. They create an emotion of only what is perfectly shareable and must be shared and distributes as a wave. It is why when you feel really good, you infect everyone. Zoom in forever to the 2 phi spirals on your 4-year-old's Valentine's Day card. That's it. So, personality fractures. When the gold powder solubility implodes and sucks too many radio stations into your DNA, thus your ear-ringing piezoelectric band. Without the will to sort memories, death is always the only solution. Yet if the activity of sorting all memories to leave only the shareable is efficient, when you feel so much tingle in your genes that they literally never die. If the DNA implosion was caused by gold powder instead of the heart of gold, then the genes merely join themselves to a long vampire chain of Borg, low and Draco, who eat human glands for the thrill of juice they can make. And this is what has set the stage for what we are seeing in the Anunnaki dragon heroes of things like Gardner to breed Earth's royal families like we do show dogs. For them, for whom it is a privilege to be assimilated, gene pools are natural resources. If you planted the forest, you ought to be allowed to cut it down. And yet you could use a bit of seed of the pure principle of what gold really is to wrap your heart around the proper feeling symmetrically. A good clue for this state is if you can reap the healing from your homeopathic remedy by simply holding and feeling the bottle. Eat the pure principle of alchemy here is to feel the gold as a language of shape which guides all waves to the center in perfect sharing. This is the heart of the matter. The philosopher's stone could only radiate the actual seed of perfect electrical implosion through a thin film, mercury, whose atomic weight was right, only its valence needed to be embedded, literally only in the presence of pure electrical intention, field of the heart. The eye of the sun is opening so closely to us right now, demanding, enter or die. This brings the eye of the storm near land tonight, galvanizing us to make a centering force in a widening gyre. The time could not be riper to reshape ourselves into what is nestable in DNA, in heart, and the earth grid. The principle is the heart of gold. EA or not, that is still earth. Gold powder is a throwback to a fractional form without that. Unfractionated, if you will, what we were before we were lied to. Immortality, true immortality, can only be here if we love. Bliss, communicating with the saints, forgiveness, embedding of the sinners, if you will. Not the blood rights, not the energies of economics and the dragons versus parasites versus the star worming. Parasites in your garden look like worms. Here's how to love them. Earth's DNA was largely cooked, and Lil Yahweh, if you will, yet steering one of these dragons up your tailbone orgasmically with love and empathy both. We can't just pump it into existence, excuse the term. It could send you back to the stars from which they fell. We fell. We've been discussing many of these things, many articles of our love-hate relationship with some of the original Sumerian, Draconian, Herubian genetic engineers who cooked us, most of our current DNA. We may at some point need to distill our musings into a clear definition of what is a parasite versus what is essence of what empowers a field to worm its way up. Did we really need all that worm, dragon, reptile blood in order to face the stars? Or are they just standing here waiting for us to join them? Studying the Templar Chapel in central Portugal and noticing the sanctuary painting showing the worshipping of a servant of Magdalene, Ma, still, Dragon Mother, who was also one of these beings who did not lose or fall. She kept her ability to implode. But it's clearly depicted with a reptile shape, a face, and hands. Starts us to use meditation. William Hamilton's research on the ancient and draconians, ETs, held a new insight for me. Although I spent a good day many years ago looking at this, and still do, it was not merely that they ate the gold which was formed in the caves due to the great magnetic fractionation of a worming field effects on a well that is astronomically, astrology-wise embedded in Earth. No. Even more importantly, they ate a field effect itself in those caves. This field emerged from the cave's dragon's mouth. The fire slaying Michael and Lil issue was created. The same fire emerges from the mouth stem that you have. The cave of darkness during Kundalini and Tantra describes and determines who anchors into this fractional stillness, raptor into rapture. And then you My brothers and sisters have slain the dragon. In proper magnetic parlance, to kill merely means to anchor into stillness. No other death is real. In this light of expanded magnetic awareness, we can reevaluate what at first seems parasitic phase of human history into a necessary evolution of self-awareness, shades of Thoth. You no longer will be merely the spawn of the Nephilim. We are gifted nearly a whole day listening to people talk about Nostradamus and beautiful things of ancient past that mostly explain detailed origins of parasitic banks of England, hence New World Order, which are not really that new, was really brought through the Masons and the Ashkenazi into Magnolian roots, the Mongols, who are interesting. This fit really well to what I know of star maps and Chinese Senshi pyramid layouts, and especially Angkor Wat, which is all pointing to these beings. Hancock takes his whole expanse and colorful recent books present in the evidence of Cambodia, Angkor Wat, as a star map of Draco, home of the star Akis, but forgets to ask why. And it fits with our Mongolian origins, of Sumerian birth of the goddess, who they just visited on the moon, and all of the scholarships of other people. But Inanna clearly tells us she took her part of the Draco blood to the ancients after her brothers, Enki and Lil, Adonai, Yahweh, made a nuclear desert of the Sinai. Sodom, Gomorrah turned to salt, etc. And of course, the stupid historians of Earth refusal to consider any ET politics behind DNA cookery, which we are actually card-carrying members, which caused this to be, leaves them completely stuck at this point. They cannot step into that, other than calling it orphan, because they don't want to say who's the daddy. And I consider elsewhere that Sumerian letters, for example, are merely optical waveguides to cellular cloning. And the Hebrew alphabet, which is incomplete, non-implosive, waits the embedding of phi, symmetry away to make a Borg, a golem, DNA, which they called all evidence of Earth's current Western origins. Intelligent biology is a simple language history of really kind of blundering ET genetic engineers, and they sucked at it a little bit. This entire story is so politically incorrect, even to talk about, that scientists who can't even tell you why an object falls to the ground, really, it's still a theory, would rather threaten you with all manner of abuse than allow you to even bring it up. Yet the same genetic predisposition amongst those same scientists to rush into the same soul-destroying cloning and genetic engineering that now threatens the free steering business and of the DNA worm's abilities to enter, embed in the stars. Our survival is again on the line. Will DNA be allowed to soar in bliss? Asked the magnetic worm. What does it take to set a character in your own dream free so something can be born in the rose? And fortunately for those few who are willing to open their intelligent horizons to politics, which extends way beyond Earth, as a tiny pretty kindergarten. There are information sources. The Dragon Alliance, which bred our royal family since the time of Cain, the genesis of the Grail Kings. Like we were show dogs, did not set up their astral feeding ground here on Earth in isolation. No. They use this same pattern literally on hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of inhabitable planets. Orion sector, I'm looking at because of Angkor Wat, etc. And the Jeddah, and the Guardians of the Grail, really good book. The pattern was sidestep the galactic government prohibition on simply invading planets and getting the planet's government to invite you for economics. This was played out on our planet when the U.S. President Eisenhower and Truman, in all their phony, prideful wisdom, decided humans would panic when told about ETs, after Eisenhower still thought he won the intraplanetary war. We'll continue with this on Thursday. I hope you enjoyed it. So, you got your aliens, you got your story. We'll continue on. Love you guys and talk to you soon. Bye for now.